episode of the Young Leaders Club podcast. I'm joined today with 22-year-old Elliot Wilkes, trainee solicitor. You've just graduated from university, and I feel like you will be such a good guest to have on today's episode, especially within the field of law. We haven't really touched on the field of law yet in the Young Leaders Club podcast, so we're going to get your perspective. Just coming out of university, you've gone through that whole rigmarole, could I say, of being a student, now going straight into the world of law and the world of work. So I'm ready to pick your brain on it. So welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So start by telling us a little bit about your journey into law. What was it about the career? What was it about law that made you want to go and study it at uni? Because it's not an easy ride, is it?
No,
it's getting that degree.
Definitely not an easy ride getting a degree, but I think when I was sort of 16, 17, I was really unsure about what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was doing my A-levels at that time, and all it took was a sort of meeting with a careers advisor, and they sort of asked me what my interests were, and they said, why don't you pursue a degree in law?
Was this at college?
This was at sixth form, yeah.
Okay.
And I just thought, I went to a few open days at a few universities, and I thought it was really interesting. Went to some networking events when I was like 17, 18, and I just got a real taste for it. I think it's really like a really rewarding career.
Yeah.
And I just find it really interesting. So I don't want to say I fell into it, but I kind of did in a way.
Yeah, because I think as a typical 16, 17-year-old, you wouldn't really think, I don't know, would you? I want to go in, I want to have a career in law. I think that's quite like, once you delve into it, there's lots of different roles, isn't there, that you have to kind of go into before you can be a lawyer. You know, I don't really know it as much as what you know it. I don't really know the terms and things like that. And I think lots of people probably dismiss going and talking to like a careers advisor at college or at university, because let's face it, in those really early stages of education, going through GCSEs, going through your A-levels, it's really rammed down our throats. You've got to go to university. What is it you want to do? I remember sitting in lessons in like year 7 and 8 and planning out, right, where do you want your career to go? And sometimes it's really not that easy to just know, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go and achieve it. So interesting that you actually took that advice from your careers advisor and went and did that. So let's talk about the initial challenges that you faced going into that career, going to university. I can imagine it's not an easy degree.
Definitely not. It's definitely not. I think.
So what are some of the standout things?
I think, well, first of all, I was the first person in my family to go to university, so I think that was a big daunting thing over my shoulder.
Okay.
There wasn't any pressure of any description, but I think moving to a new city, that was a really big challenge. Living in Liverpool, I really enjoyed my time there. But the degree was challenging at times. There were times where I thought, God, is this something that I want to pursue? Is this definitely the right fit for me? Because I think it's not just with law degrees, but it's with any degree. You can go to university and you can study for 3 years, but then you don't know what the job's going to be like. You don't know if that's the right fit for you.
It's hard.
But that's why it's really crucial to try and get yourself involved. As much networking, work experience, basically any opportunity you can get, throw yourself at it, because that's the only way you're going to get a real good taste for it.
Yeah.
But university was challenging as anything. I think through the pandemic it was really odd because all the learning was shifted to online. That was quite difficult for everybody.
Was you there within the midst of COVID?
Yes, literally right in the middle of it.
So when did you start uni? Was it
2020?
Okay, so right as it kicked off then. So did you do a lot of it online?
Pretty much 60 to 70% of my degree was online.
And what was that like? Because obviously you haven't got that teacher connection, have you? I mean, I know that lecturers are very accessible on email and all the rest of it, but I think actually having that one-to-one time and having the focus as well, I don't know about you, but when I'm at home and I'm having to do things, I am so easily distracted. My focus is nowhere near where it's meant to be. Compared to when I'm in lessons. So that must have been a huge challenge in itself anyway. Yeah,
definitely. That was really challenging. There were times where I thought I wanted to defer, I wanted to just leave it and come back to uni at a later date, but I think I was just really eager to get myself in the world of work as soon as I could. but it was challenging. But nonetheless, like I really enjoyed my degree.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really looking forward to where I'm at now.
So going back to A-levels, obviously anyone who applies to university or, you know, maybe is thinking about going to university later on and is having a bit of a career change, it's always a little bit more difficult, I think, when you want to go into a brand new field, because a lot of it does depend on your A-levels and your education prior to university. So what did you study at A-level which enabled you to get into your degree?
Yeah, so my A-levels I studied religious studies, literature, history and economics, but they were all very sort of essay heavy based. But the skills I picked up in those sort of was what tailored that careers advice that I had, was sort of tailoring towards law, because the skills that are involved in those sort of subjects, you naturally sway more towards like a legal career. But yeah, I enjoyed the A-levels. A long time ago. Happy I finished them then.
Mine were longer, but yeah. You touched base on going to networking events when you were like 17.
Yeah.
What drew you to go into these? Because as someone who is 25, I went to my first networking event when I was, 24? I didn't even really know what networking was. Probably because I've not really been in that sort of, what could you say? Being more of a creative, that wasn't really on my horizon in the world of business. I wasn't ever in that. So it's daunting to go into as a 24-year-old with loads of experience. So how was it going into it as a 17-year-old?
I think where I was at college, they were really good with that sort of stuff. So they organised a lot of networking events internally and externally. So that I was just getting involved in that, signed up to loads of things. But also in the run up to applying to university and sort of like getting my UCAS application, I was attending like open days, as many talks, taster sessions. So that was what I threw myself at the most. But that was pretty much, it was okay. 17 years old was a bit daunting, stepping into a room full of professionals, but I think you kind of just, you get used to it. And then it got progressively, I did more of it when I was at uni, obviously, and then I do quite frequently now networking events.
Were they networking events for specifically people of your age, maybe breaking through into that career, or were it just
I think
different networking events that professionals were at? Yeah,
I've been to like various different ones. So I've been to sort of an under 25s one. That was like 18 to 25. I've been to just general networking events. So you get like a big. I prefer. Well, I don't prefer, but I like the younger networking events, because you meet a lot of people who are in the same situation as you. So you've got a lot of stories to share, which I think is really useful as well. I
also think, I mean, obviously I'm coming at it from a completely different perspective to you, but I went to a conference in April time, and it was very much for people within radio, so like lots of presenters. And what really stood out to me was, you know, that there were younger based people who were there. And what stood out to me was that these people who I'm potentially meeting now, we're all going to go through this sort of career path. We're all going to grow older all at the same time, but you don't know that the people who you meet at that event, you might end up working for, you know, later on in our careers. So it's very good going to networking events where, you know, there are people who are well established in the field and, you know, job opportunities might arise there, but the people who you meet who are our sort of age, building those connections to start with, you're not quite sure where they might lead to later on. We might not be able to offer you a job straight away, but later on down the line, you could meet someone who you met when you were 17, 18, and actually, let's collab on this later on when you're established.
Absolutely.
You know, so here at the Young Leaders Club, obviously, our mission is to kind of open these doors up to people who might want a career change, or, you know, they're not really too sure on where to navigate themselves. So I think the fact that you've been to networking clubs, networking events from that really young age proves that it's not actually that scary and you can do it.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely scary. I think the first time you go to networking, it is daunting, because you do have to you do have to go in it with an open mind. You do have to sort of throw yourself at it, and you know, especially when you're young, it's you know what you're thinking, oh, what do I say to this person? Am I going to say the wrong thing? But just if you've got, you know, something that you're interested in, and people that share those interests, you'd be surprised at how quickly you can demonstrate, like, one, your passion, and two, just your general sort of interest in that area. For me, it was law, so it's very easy to go and have a conversation with someone who works in law or studies law, so it's quite easy.
And from that as well, I think it's, from doing networking, you get a lot of skills from that anyway.
Definitely.
Just from, you know, social skills, meeting new people. In your career, you are meeting new people all the time, meeting new clients. So I can imagine that set you up with a lot of skills as well going into your career.
Absolutely, yeah. People skills was like a big thing that for me I had to work on, because I wasn't always the confident type. But
to what you are now.
To what I are now.
Nobody's things like that have helped.
Yeah, definitely. So networking events, public speaking, and things like that definitely sort of bring out some good qualities in you, and gives you a chance to sort of really work on your people skills, which, you know, for my industry, that's essential, because you're liaising with clients, other solicitors, business partners, colleagues as well. Must not forget those on a daily basis. So yeah, it's really, really useful.
So I've known you for quite a while, good friends.
Yeah.
But obviously we're talking now on a career term.
Very serious.
Yeah, we're being serious right now. But I know that it's not all been law, it's not all been university, it's not all been serious. And as great as what university is, and as much as we have to study on our degrees, they do offer lots of extracurricular as well. And you did some extracurriculars, didn't you, at university?
Yes, yeah.
Would you class it as extracurricular? What was it classed as?
I'd class it as extracurricular. Yeah.
So was it like a course that you could go on? Did it just support your studies, or what was it?
So when I was at university, towards the end of my university degree, actually, because most of it was disrupted by COVID, but towards the end of it, I went to a freshers' fair, and I walked past this University Royal Naval Unit stand, and someone literally grabbed my arm and said, "Do you want to join the Navy?" And my initial thought was, no. I've not signed up to a law degree. Someone just
grabbed you and said, "Do you want to join the Navy?"
Yeah, literally. And I was like, first off, I don't think so. I think, you know, I was pretty sort
I'm going to be a lawyer, darling.
Yeah, it was pretty head on. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. But it was like, no, you don't have to join the Navy. You just have to join the society. And you can pick up like loads of people skills. You can learn a bit about the Navy, a bit of a social as well. So it's the social aspect was was really good. So I joined the University Royal Naval Unit in Liverpool. Was there for sort of like a year, so about 18 months. And it was just incredible. Every week on the Thursday, you go in and drill nights. You learn a bit about the Navy, a bit about navigation. Go and have a drink in the bar afterwards, go and speak to sort of like sub-lieutenants, lieutenants, commanders, and it's just a really different to what obviously I'm working now.
Yeah.
But
and what you were at university for as well.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that there's so many transferable skills that I picked up from that, because one thing I was struggling with at uni was the opportunities.
Right.
You know, I was really worried that you know, I might not get a job straight out of uni. The industry is really competitive. Yeah. So in my mind, it was like, okay, what can I do? Something else that I might be interested in. What can I do that's going to give me some skills that perhaps legal recruiters are looking for? So that really put me in good stead. But I really enjoyed my time there. It was really good.
I think that's what's very easily dismissed by people when looking at going to university, because from the outside looking in, if you've not been to university, I completely get why people think, I don't want to go, there's so much debt, it's 3 years of my life. And it is a massive time out that you have to take, especially if you're going to go a little bit later on. Yeah. Which is what I've done, you know. I started university at 22, went to uni, dropped out, now in my third year. I'm like 4 years later. It's a big sacrifice for people. Yeah. But equally, it isn't just about your degree. No. Yes, you get loads of social skills from going to university, and you probably have the best years of your life when you're there, and I think lots of people encourage people to go
Yeah.
and have fun while you're doing it. But as well, things like what you've just said, you probably, when you first enrolled at, is it John Moores?
John Moores I went to,
When you first enrolled at John Moores, I bet you never thought, I'm going to join the Navy Society,
Definitely not.
But how that has kind of shaped you into where you are now, it's not all about the legal stuff and about law and, everything that you do building up to where you are now didn't have to always come from
a legal background.
Yeah,
definitely.
And that probably stood out on your CV when applying.
I hope so. Well,
I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because I think it adds that bit of personality to you as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And a different side of you.
Yeah, it's something completely different. I mean, when I tell people that's what I did, they're like, oh, wow, it kind of takes people aback.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a lot from it, which, I really enjoyed.
Would you encourage people who are maybe looking at starting a career in law to, probably have the similar worries to what you did of, oh my gosh, it's such a competitive industry. Am I going to walk out of university with a degree?
Yeah.
Would you encourage them to go and do something like that? Maybe, not necessarily join the Navy, but,
I think if you've got concerns that there might not be a space there for you at the end of your degree to go and walk into a job, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No one walks into a job after you, and if you do, you're extremely lucky. But I think having an open mind and saying, I might try something else for now, get what I can from it, pick up as many skills as I can, speak to as many people as I can, put it on your CV, and then 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the line, whenever it is, go and apply to your ideal position, and then you've got more to back yourself in the application process, which is what I thought was really benefited me. So I'd definitely recommend. It might not have to be the Navy, but it could be something completely different. Just go and do it.
So like what you mentioned earlier as well, it's really difficult to just walk into that job.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to know that that degree that you are studying is going to be the right job for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say this to my sister all the time. She's changed to be a midwife. I'm like, how are you going to know that you want to be a midwife until you are fully qualified and actually work in that lifestyle? Because, I mean, probably a little bit different to law, but that is a whole lifestyle in itself. The amount of work that they have to do and, the amount of pressure that is on. But in a similar aspect, the same with the legal stuff, I can imagine that is a lot of pressure when you're dealing with clients. I've got to get this right.
Yeah. But I think in your early stage as well, like I've just joined Higgs, really in sort of like my early days as a trainee solicitor. But I think when you're doing your research in terms of finding the right employer for you, and when you're having these early conversations with recruiters and stuff, you kind of get a feel what the firm's like.
Yeah.
And sort of in my early days, before I joined the firm, that was a conversation I had to have with myself, is this the right place for me?
Yeah.
Turns out it is. I'm very happy there.
Yeah.
But I think having a confidence in, when you say like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, there are people there to help you. No one's expecting you to walk through the door as a graduate or an apprentice or anything like that is going to expect you to know how to do the job straight away. That is something that I've had to learn.
Yeah.
And I've had to digest, because I thought walking into the door, okay, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to, that bit that I learned from my degree, I'm going to have to apply it here. The working world is very different to studying, massively. But I think when you go and have a look and try and find a job for yourself, I think it's a conversation you need to have with yourself, is this the right firm for me? And all it takes is just going to networking events, open days, messaging on LinkedIn, asking people who, one of the first things I did was message a legal assistant at Higgs and say, look, I'm really interested in the firm, could you tell me a little bit more about it? And I think that's when you start to gain the knowledge that, okay, this might be a place where I could train, I could work for the next however many years. But until you do that, you're going in the dark, really. So
those initial connections are really vital, to be honest, because at the end of the day, that might seem quite daunting to someone who is maybe a little bit worried about, I've got to try and secure a firm, I've got to try and find the right firm for me. And I think that is the most human thing to do, is to just message someone. I do it all the time. People probably get irritated with me on LinkedIn because I message everybody. Just to say, like, hey, how did you get to where you got?
Absolutely.
You know, and from me messaging people, that has got me in so many positions that I'm grateful that I'm in. Just from, hey, how did you get to where you are? What are the steps? Because sometimes you can get to that mental block of, I don't know what more I can do. I don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, and that feeling of, I feel like I'm doing everything. I've researched this. I really want to do this. What are my next steps? And just by that first message to someone who is in that position where you want to be, it's the most human thing to do. And it should just be totally normalised.
It's such a full circle thing as well, because I did that 3 years ago, and then now I'm getting messages from people asking me, and I feel like I'm not in no position to give you advice. Like, I need advice myself. Like,
but that's what makes you realise that that person who you first messaged probably felt the same way. What's he doing messaging me? I don't know what I'm doing. You know, everyone's just kind of going with the flow. You know, so I think that is really good advice for anyone who wants to kind of get into that field. That normally just going with that normal approach of just messaging someone. And 9 times out of 10, everyone kind of gets back to you anyway. Because people do want to help, especially when they kind of see you in the position that they were once in. You know, and people who do go through that kind of cycle of working their way up knows how difficult it is. So is normally always open to giving advice anyway. So we touched base a little bit on advice, but what would you say to someone who could be watching this, who is maybe thinking about a career in law, is thinking, oh my goodness, there's so many stages. What would your best bit of advice be? Where to start, best way to go about things,
I think
universities, you know?
So, I mean, traditionally, you know, you need to attempt to be a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer yet. Yet.
Wink at Higgs.
Yet. I've just got a lot of work to do yet.
Yeah, of course.
But I think, you know, the traditional way was you go to law school, 3 years, you do your law degree, you do your legal practice course, which I've just completed mine. And then you do what's traditionally what's called a training contract, which is what I'm doing now. So you do 4 different seats in 4 different areas of law. You spend 6 months in each. So I'm currently in commercial property at the moment, loving that.
Is commercial property something that you think you could end up doing? Because obviously there's so many different avenues of law.
Absolutely. Like, definitely, like, not ruling anything out. I'm really enjoying my time there. So. I think eventually I'll make that decision towards the end of my training contract. But the advice I'd give to people who are interested in a career in law is be yourself, be authentic. Don't try and look at what other people have done and think, I've got to be just like them. Because I didn't do it like anyone else did it. And I think you got to remind yourself, just be authentic, be persistent. You're going to get rejected. You're going to have training contract applications. You're going to have paralegal applications, legal assistant, and there are going to be tons and tons of emails saying no, you've been unsuccessful, but just be persistent. And you know, chances are you've made a good impression on the people that are recruiting you, have interviewed you, and they might even call you back, which is what happened with me. It was, you know, really lucky. And just attend networking events, get yourself involved in everything, try new things. And just throw yourself out there. Just having little goals as well. Setting yourself little goals. Say, you know, in a year I'll be here, and then in 2 years I'll be there. But yeah, I think it's the way it's changed now with the legal industry is that you don't have to go to uni. You can do you do have to go to uni, but you don't have to do the training contract route. You can. The SRA have changed their qualification route, but you can work as a legal assistant paralegal and gain 2 years experience and then you're qualified. It's a little bit different now.
Well, that was actually going to be my next question to you, because obviously university isn't for everybody. It's not always accessible for everybody.
No, definitely not.
You know, people have lots of, you know, what's the word? People have lots of other responsibilities that maybe they can't attend university, especially a full-time course. So tell me a little bit more about how you can go around the route of university. Obviously, you did go through the university route, but from what you do know, what's another way into it?
So you have to attend university to get your degree, regardless. So,
okay.
I'll just take the solicitor apprenticeship, for example, because I know there's a couple of people in my firm that are doing that route.
Right.
And you basically work alongside your degree. You just do your degree and your legal practice course or SQE over a course of sort of 6-7 years, I think. And that's a really niche way of doing it. It's a really new way of doing it. There's a lot of solicitor apprenticeships out there, but it's becoming more of a common thing now where you work alongside your degree. When I set out to do my degree, I think solicitor apprenticeships were just becoming started.
So would lots of firms offer that apprenticeship, or is it slowly like on the rise?
It's slowly on the rise. I mean, Higgs were one of the first on it. They were. I think there's a couple of apprentices that started maybe 2 or 3 years ago at Higgs, but I think most firms are starting to divert into that route, and the whole training contract system is changing. So traditionally you'd have to do, like I said, 6 months in 4 different seats, but now you can be a paralegal in one area of law, and if you've done that for 2 years and you've got the right qualifications, you can qualify.
Nice.
So that it's becoming, maybe I would say, more flexible, not necessarily more accessible, because it's still, you know, the industry is really competitive, but I think it's becoming more flexible to qualify than it was before COVID, definitely.
Yeah, that's good. That's good for people who, you know, can't commit to doing those full-time courses. And,
yeah, definitely.
You know, there's lots of people who might want to go through a career change. They are a little bit older and maybe have got a family. So definitely I think that apprenticeship would be beneficial to a lot of people. So you sound like you found the right firm for you to do your trainee solicitor course program?
Contract. So
Contract, okay, that's the right word.
It gets confusing, don't
It gets confusing. But that, especially going into that environment, you know, fresh from your, I always get this wrong,
LPC.
Legal
practice course.
Legal practice course, which comes after your degree.
Yes,
There's so many stages to it.
Yeah.
But you sound like you found the right firm for you.
Definitely.
And I can imagine that whilst you are there and you are going through this trainee solicitor contract, you need a lot of mentorship. You need a big support network around you.
Yeah.
So what have been the benefits of that? What have been the benefits of having someone there or a team there that can mentor you?
So I have a supervisor. So every trainee will have a supervisor.
Yeah.
They'll also have a trainee buddy.
Okay.
They'll also have a wellbeing mentor.
Okay.
As well. And generally as well, I think when I first started my application to Higgs, the relationship I had with HR and the people interviewing me were really positive. Sophie Wardell, the people director at Higgs, she really put a lot of trust and a lot of faith in me from that first sort of interview, and Claire from Higgs as well. And I think I wouldn't describe it as mentorship, but I would describe it more so as a support network.
Yeah.
Because when I found out that I'd got the job at Higgs, I was still in uni.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of pressure on me to pass exams. There was a lot of worry that, am I not gonna be here? Like, am I not gonna be at Higgs at the end of the LPC? What happens if I fail an exam? You know, what happens if I don't live up to your expectations? And I think, you know, it takes just a conversation that I had with them, but they were my support network. Without them and without the conversations I had with them, you know, I wouldn't have had that belief really. So definitely internally, mentorship's like really important. And I think even now in my job role, everyone at the firm is like really supportive. If it can be work related or non-work related, everyone's really accessible. All you have to do is just pop in the office, pick up a phone, and they're there.
Absolutely. And I think this is what we pride ourselves on at the Young Leaders Club, of having a really, really strong network of people who specialise in all different fields, so that if you are enrolling onto a programme at the Young Leaders Club, or you do want to seek some advice or help, or just have that one person to reach out to who is experienced. That is so important going forward into your career, into your professional life, because I feel like that is how you learn best.
Yeah.
Learning from other people and thinking that, you know, you hear it so many times, like, no question is a silly question. But it's really not, because if it's on your mind and you just want to know, having those role models there who are accessible to you, who you can just drop a message and ask anything that's on your mind, you know, that is really, really important to have. I think going forward in your professional lives, career, and, you know, this is what we're trying to create the hub on. So, good to know that you've had a good experience with a support network and people who are professional and experienced in your career, knowing that it's benefiting you, especially within the firm that you're working in.
Definitely. It's definitely benefited me.
Elliot, thank you so much. I feel like we've had quite a good, in-depth conversation on law and what it takes to kind of go into the world of legal practice and all the rest of it. I wish you all the best at Higgs.
Thank you very much.
You've only just started, haven't you, pretty much, as a trainee solicitor?
So
was it as of today the title changed?
Yesterday the title changed.
Yesterday. So what was you?
I was a legal assistant before.
Okay.
And a trainee solicitor now.
Amazing.
So
how long is this programme going to take now?
So
this contract?
2 years.
2 years as a trainee solicitor?
Yes.
Then what's the next move?
You know, I'm happy and I'm just taking it a day at a time at the moment.
Yeah. It's nice now that you can just kind of have a little bit of a breather. Have you still got exams coming? Am I speaking too soon?
Yeah, I've got another course to do next year,
Okay.
but that's a mini one. There's nothing in comparison to my degree and the LPC. But
yeah, I know last year on the LPC it was stressful time, lots of exams.
Yeah.
Elliot actually came to work in a restaurant that that I work in part-time, and you didn't have time to do it really, did you?
No, literally took over my life for a year.
But all for the better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get you back on when you are a qualified lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? Fab. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
And we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.